A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on History, our version.
The hot days. There are a lot of tourists and you can catch the indescribable odd smell of rotten eggs. These signs make it clear to you that you're in the Tbilisi bathhouses. Ah, here are some tourists. They're following a popular route. Having passed the bathhouses and waterfall, they see the steep slope of the Metatsminda mountain. You can ascend it on foot or go by cable car. The Narikala fortress, which is situated on the Silk Road, was considered impregnable. Although it was said that it could withstand a 2-year siege, once it didn't hold out even for a few days. Suddenly the north wind blew and the great eastern sea raged. The beast of prey and his bloodthirsty lion cub, the Khazar ruler, moved south. First, he looked at the city of Tbilisi, where no valiant heroes of the past remained. It was a suitable time to take revenge for the insults of the past. From the history of the country of Aluan by Movses Kalanlan-Tuatitsi. According to the chroniclers, the late spring or early summer of 627 were known as the hot days. There was the Western Turkic Khaganate, the Byzantine Empire, the Sassanid Iran or Persia, and Iberian Kartli, ancient Georgian kingdom. The World War of the 7th century was a story of an insult. The Byzantine government and the Turkic Khaganate tried to conclude a treaty against Iran. The wounded Turkic pride manifested itself in war. They were told to recall their escapade. Chapter 1. The Geopolitical Web. It was in Semireche in 626, heralds carrying messages from the Khagan went to all the regions of the Western Turkic Empire, to the Sea of Azov, the Don River, the eastern spurs of the Chanshan Mountains, and northeastern India. All tribes and clans, regardless of whether they live in the mountains or valleys, are settled or nomadic, shave their heads or wear plates, and have to be ready to arrive as soon as they are called. From the history of the country of Aluan by Movses Kalanlan-Tuatitsi. A universal mobilization was declared to give military support to Byzantium. Constantinople continued to fight against Iran for almost 3 decades. That war had started in the beginning of the 7th century, and Constantinople wasn't too successful. The Byzantine Empire sent heralds to Central Asia in order to start a military campaign. It wasn't the first attempt of the Turkic people and Byzantines to enter into an alliance. In 568, the ambassadorial caravan of the Turkic Khaganate, which was still united, had entered into trade and military alliances in the capital of the Byzantine Empire. A few decades later, this relationship between them was resumed. The Khaganate nomadic tribes, federations, spread towards Iran. They were confronted by the Sassanids, who were in the present territory of Iran. The state of 10 Arrows was at the height of its powers. Tong Yabgu became the head of the Western Turkic tribes in 618. He carried out some reforms and even minted his own coins. The Western Turkic Khaganate was ruled by the representative of the Ashin dynasty. The interests of the ruling dynasty in the country in regard to fighting for the Great Silk Road were the same. The advantages which the united rule gained were obvious. The southern areas where the settled people lived needed safe trade for prosperity. The northern part of the Khaganate, where the nomads lived, provided that safety. The tribes that were separated before and lost their strength in constant wars started enjoying a peaceful life and were given opportunities for the development of livestock farming. As a result, they were able to realize that they were united, which led to the appearance of the Turkic unity. The Ancient Turks by Lev Gumilyov. Tens of towns were founded and fortresses were constructed in the valleys of the Talas, Chu and Ili rivers. According to medieval sources, they had two capital cities. The winter capital was in Suyab, which was in Kyrgyzstan, and the summer one was not far from modern Turkestan. The Talas Valley was populated by people from ancient times. For example, you can see the Kyrgyz ridge from the Tekturmas mountain. There are caves with petroglyphs inscribed during the Bronze Age or even the Iron Age. It's enough to look at the place names to understand that they refer to the area of the Ili, eastern Turkestan, and the Chu River in the Kyrgyz mountains. The main region these places named refer to is in Kazakhstan. The Turkic people and the Sogdians, who were under their authority, were interested in establishing new trade relations and strengthening the old ones with Byzantium. However, Sassanid Iran prevented that. It's interesting that even the war which the Turkic people fought didn't influence their trade with the Persians significantly. The weakly protected eastern border of Iran became vulnerable because Yabgu Khagan deployed troops across the Caspian Sea. The Turkic Khagan aimed at the Transcaucasian provinces of Iran. The troops of the Turkic people and the Khazars attacked at Derbent, then invaded Albania and went to Iberia towards Tbilisi. The Khazars by Vyacheslav Manyagin, Lev Gumilyov and Svetlana Pletnova. Chapter 2. Discrepancies in the Chronicles. Then the Khazars surrounded the famous, rich city of Tbilisi. The bells clanged alarmingly and the soft sound of the duduk, a type of flute, died away. The Persian bazaars, situated in the center of the city, became silent. The capital of the Eastern Georgian kingdom froze in anticipation. In the 620s, Georgia faced an invasion carried out by the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius and representative of the Western Turkic Khaganate, Jibgo Khagan, as he was mentioned in Georgian sources.
Западно-тюркского каганата Джибгу Хакана, как он упомянут в грузинских источниках.
As for these sources, the majority of them contained information not about the Turkic people, but about the Khazars. As a rule, they were mentioned in chronicles written later. The majority of researchers think that it can be explained by the fact that there were more Khazars among the Turkic tribes. The Khazar Khaganate started developing in the Western Turkic Khaganate. In addition, their tribes were in the northern Caspian region. According to the official version, the Khazar Khaganate formed as a separate state in 650. The Khazar Khaganate existed from the middle of the 7th century until the middle of the 10th century. Not everything is clear about the ruler of the Turkic people, nor the Khazars themselves. In Georgian sources, he is called Jibgo. In Byzantium, he was known as Zyevil, and in some chronicles he is described as the second most important person after the Khan. Nevertheless, he was the Khagan. It's doubtful that the emperor could make some governor-general his relative. Heraclius strengthened the treaty. He showed the Turkic ruler a portrait of his daughter Eudoxia and said, "God has joined us, and you become like a son for me. This is my daughter, a Byzantine princess. If you take arms together with me and help me fight against the enemy, she will become your wife." Breviary by the Patriarch Nicephorus. There is little information about the strength of the opposing sides in the chronicles. There were about 1,000 warriors, including the defenders of Tbilisi, or Tiflis as it was known. They fought against the troops of the Western Turkic Khaganate, consisting of 40,000, and the Byzantine army, the size of which remains unknown.
В 626 году по одному преданию возглавил это нашествие.
A legend has it that the Byzantine emperor Heraclius was the one who headed the invasion. He wanted to take Tbilisi himself. The military force of the Eastern Turkic people and their prince Yabgu Khagan assisted him.
Тюрок, западных тюрок, так называемых, и ихнего принца Джибгу Хакана.
Chapter 3. Insult and Punishment. There were impregnable towers and a special water supply system conducting water along channels and aqueducts and underground tunnels. In the early Middle Ages, its walls faced the river. Narikala was the same age as Tbilisi. The siege continued for 2 months. Catapults made by Byzantine engineers fired at the walls of the city. They threw water skins filled with stones and sand to change the course of the Kura River. In spite of these efforts, they couldn't capture the city. The citadel was called Shuris Sikir, which meant enviable fortress. As the name implied, the citadel really was impregnable. The Byzantine Empire, who was observing the futile attempts to storm it, offered to stop the siege and continue attacking.
Видя, что долго не могут осаждать город пришедшие.
The Georgians saw that the enemies couldn't continue the siege of the city for long, and according to an Armenian source, started ridiculing both Heraclius and Yabgu Khagan.
Они начали издеваться над как Ираклием, так и над Джибгу Хаканом.
They brought a huge pumpkin and drew the Tsar's face on it. They drew lines instead of the eyelashes, 7-inch wide nostrils, and a thin moustache. Thus, it was quite easy to recognize him. Then they brought the pumpkin and started shouting to the enemy soldiers below, "Your Tsar is here! Come here and bow to him. This is Yabgu Khagan." They took spears and started thrusting at the pumpkin depicting the Khagan in front of the soldiers. The History of the Country of Aluank by Moses Kalan Tatwatsi. They mocked the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius too. They verbally insulted him and called him a goat. However, Heraclius was not distracted by that. He quoted from the book of Daniel from the Old Testament. "The shaggy goat, the king of Greece will destroy the ram, the king of Persia." The Byzantine emperor thought it was a good sign and convinced his supporters that they would win.
Все поклялись, все те, которые стояли у стен города, что
Those who were standing near the walls of the city swore that they were going to punish them. After the enemies insulted them and even gave a performance with the pumpkins, they said they would return the following year.
то вот мы придем в следующий год.
Здесь сыграл фактор.
The fact that they were treated in such a way played a significant role, and they were going to burn these cities completely.
То мы вообще сожжем эти города.
According to different data, Yabgu Khagan, together with his army, remained near the walls of the city, and literally a few days later, the fortress fell. However, the majority of chroniclers say that the citadel was conquered during another campaign conducted in the following year. In any case, all the sources confirm that the Turkic tribes captured the city eventually.
Куру заполнили большими камнями, и Кура
The Kura River was filled with large stones. As a result, the Kura rose and overflowed the walls. When the Georgians had to surrender, they were reminded that
грузины сдаться, и им тогда напомнили.
Yabgu captured Kala a few days later, took the head of the fortress prisoner and filled his mouth with drachmas, gold coins. Then he skinned him alive and sent for the Tsar. From the conversion of Georgia, chronicles by an unknown author.
Мы их собирались брать.
We were not going to take you by storm. However, now you will pay for your mockery. After that, Tbilisi was plundered.
После этого был Тбилиси разграблен ужасно.
Epilogue, a sign of the times. The walls of Narikala stormed by the Turkic people have not remained due to other wars and earthquakes. Part of them were pulled down, and time has erased them from the streets of old Tbilisi. Heraclius was right in thinking that the insult was a good omen, because it really was. In 627, the Persian army existed no more. The Western Turkic army had played its part in this world war, which the largest armies fought each other, and it came to an end.